It's time to make right what is wrong. Here's Paul Preston with Agenda 21.
Well, hello and welcome to Agenda 21 Radio. This is the radio show that is stopping totalitarianism, one exceptional American at a time. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, are you that exceptional American? Well, I suspect you are. That's why you're listening to this radio show right here, right now on Agenda 21 Radio. Remember to visit our website, a21r.com, and of course, New California State, State of the Future, and what a future you have. We have with us today, welcome back. Been a long time. She hasn't been here. We just ought to rag on her for that, of course. Simone Anderson. And Simone, welcome back to Agenda 21 Radio. It's been a long time. And you're back
welcome.
in Anderson.
Thank you, Paul.
I love the backdrop. Where are you at right now?
I'm at Anderson River Park, my favorite spot. When I got here, when it was 35 degrees this morning, I was thinking, so why did I book a show the day of the 4th of January?
I don't know.
Next month I have a new apartment in the Bay Area, so I'll be able to broadcast from an actual house over the next few shows.
Well, that'll be awesome. I mean, that living in the park thing just doesn't cut it. I know. It just
well,
doesn't.
I try to show people what Northern California looks like, but today it looks really overcast and rainy.
It's actually a beautiful setting behind you. I mean, it really projects really well. It's neat. And of course, that whole area up there around Anderson, you guys just got a new billionaire.
Oh, did we? I hadn't heard.
Yeah,
Who's that?
yeah. I don't know. We don't know. There was a ticket that was sold, a lottery ticket.
Oh, right, in Cottonwood.
Right, not too far from you.
Exactly. My mom asked me if I'd bought a ticket, but I don't do the lottery. But I was in Cottonwood the day before. I could have bought a ticket over there. I don't know.
You could have been one of those big time winners.
Exactly. Well, I prefer to keep my money and not take a 1 in a billion chance, but it is crazy that it happened right next to the house.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, of course, there's a lot of things going on in Shasta County too, but that's another story. We could talk about that later. We want to talk about the media today and the importance of what's been going on in the media, because there's a big transition. I guess you would say the LA area, Hollywood, has been taking some really hard knocks. Good for the good, I think. And we talk to the people down in Hollywood all the time because most of them want to be in New California, and most of them aren't. I mean, that's just a reality because it's Los Angeles, Hollywood. But there is a lot of people in distress in that industry. What's the word as far as you can see? Because you were down there, you used to do a lot of stuff in Hollywood. And kind of give us a little bit of your own background that way, because you have a fascinating history, by the way. But we could spend 5 hours talking about that.
Okay, well, essentially, I started out my career promoting mining stocks and being a female mining promoter, which was highly unusual in the late 80s and 90s. I ended up working and living in communist Russia for several years. And when I got done with that, I was just like, I'm a native Californian. I need to go back to California and work in an industry. My parents had owned a winery growing up, so I had the option of returning to work in the wine industry, but I chose to go to Hollywood to get away from the communists, I thought. But I ended up landing smack dab in the middle of Hollywood. I did work there for a few years and ended up actually starting a small film company that I sold to someone else, and ended up staying and working for a few years on and off just as a consultant, where I was mainly working on raising the money for making movies like Ghost Rider and the original Marvel comic characters that I worked on producing. So I ended up learning a lot about Hollywood and what was going on there. And unfortunately, the Hollywood media has taken a hard left turn. A lot of people don't understand that Hollywood and the media is actually part of the military-industrial complex owned by the Federal Reserve System. And they are put in place to sway our opinion, whether it comes to war or whether we should take certain medical practices. I just wanted to I kind of had a list of all the people that were going down on Hollywood and the hundreds of millions of dollars. But what I don't think people really understand is that since 2021, the American government has been financing the media. So we can just look at, let me see, I think the media over the last few years has been losing a lot of money. And I think that they were covering it up by getting money from the federal government. They were getting, I think, 65 million from the Department of Defense, the Department of Treasury, the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so as we discuss this just came out as part of the Doji. The different congressmen are bringing areas of abuse into the new government officials. And I think Rand Paul has been exposing all the money that the government since 2021. So I believe the reason we're seeing, I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware of this, but right now, CNN and NBC are for sale. They have no buyers because they have no viewership. So in order, their main people, like MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, she's taken a dramatic cut. But what we understand, and this happens in all other countries, Trudeau has been funding the British media, but it's much more open in other countries that the government supports the media, where in the United States, people feel like
everything's
is independent.
Yeah, everybody's independent, and it doesn't matter, basically.
Right. And that's just really, really not happening. And you can see since 2021, I think that people had been turning away from the mainstream media for a long time before they've actually admitted it. And that's why some of these people that are leading and blatantly lying to us are getting paid so much money. This is why they have all these salaries. I mean, Rachel Maddow has a once a week show. Why is she getting paid $25 million? And if you remember, prior to the big pandemic, most of the advertising, including on Fox, was big pharma advertising, and that got pulled. I think it was something strange was going on both of those organized medias at the time, because all of a sudden they pulled their big pharma ads and they were doing things like MyPillow and things like that, which, are big companies, but not anywhere near as what they were getting from big pharma. So I think there's really a lot. If you want to go and learn out more about how the government is spending our money and financing the left-wing media, you can go to a company or a website called usaspending.com. It's literally a government entity. And it says Reuters got over 100 contracts from the Department of Justice. They were the largest payer. So the Department of Justice, why are they paying the media? They got $62.4 million during the Biden administration. The Homeland Security and the Department of Defense, of course, because they want a war, and they're using the Homeland Security and the Department of Defense to push that. They got, let me see, about $50 million. The Department of Treasury, 31 million to push the cryptocurrency and all these things that they're trying to do that are not constitutional money supplies. And then we even had things like global media. And this is the one that really is kind of scary. The SEC. Why is the Securities and Exchange Commission paying off the media when we're going through all these crazy monopolistic behaviors by the major industries? The SEC should be doing everything to show that it's completely neutral. So this is, to me, this is really one of the successes of 2024, is that consumers turned against the corporate media and they're looking at the independent media. And what we have to do, both as conservatives and as people who are now in the mainstream media, is we have to make sure we're not turning into the people we've been bad mouthing and talking about.
That's right.
And be fair-minded. Some people made mistakes. Some people have been misled. And we have to be the bigger people. And this is one thing I learned. I went with the lovely ladies that are working on the Shasta County vote situation. I went to the board of directors meeting last week, and the amount of venom and animosity and stuff that is directed, it's not like a professional. People are up there swearing. This is not the way. And personally attacking the people on the board of directors. I encourage everyone.
Is this the board of supervisors?
Yeah, the Board of Supervisors, yes, in Shasta County. And I understand that people may be upset with them, but the lowering of just the way people are expected to behave in society today is not good. And we have to be the bigger people. A lot of people confess a faith, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, the Islam faith. They demand that we respect our elders and that we respect the people around us and that we pray for our enemies. And so I know that on my show, I go into depth about people. I'm investigating them on a forensic way, not personally attacking them. I do not want anything to happen to them or their children. They're destroying themselves. They don't need me putting
Yeah, right.
aside my faith and my beliefs to attack them, because I'm just going to be, this is the danger, that we're going to become just like they were acting. And we really have to put ourselves above that. So that's kind of my message for people in 2024. We have to learn from the mistakes of the past, and we have to look at a brighter future. And we all have to look deep in ourselves to figure out how that's going to work in our everyday life.
Well, that's those are some very good words, and a lot of people, get lost in the context of whatever they're doing, and it's very easy to take it out on board members. Here's the problem, though, is that the people have had just about as much as they're going to take, and I totally know what you're saying, because I used to sit on boards. I know that whole thing. It was very difficult sometimes because you had a board member that was being recalled, and you had all this going on and yelling and screaming. We never allowed that, but we had pretty good control. People understood that we're there to listen, which was a key concept. The problem that we have with California government in general is they're not listening. They just have they've just given the big middle finger to everybody, and that's across the board. You can go from board to board to board, and they're not listening to you. And deliberately so. They just turn the volume off, or they shut you down. You get 30 seconds to talk on a bill issue in Sacramento. So you've seen this whole thing take place over California in the last 20, 30 years, to a point where they've seen 2 stolen elections, near stolen. Of course, Kamala Harris gets 9 million votes out of California. Now, how laughable is that? People realize they're not being dealt a square hand, and that's part of the problem. And there's a real frustration, when you are a sitting board member, and quite frankly, these board members know what the truth is, and when they're out there lying or promulgating lies, people are now starting to stand up and say, we're not going to tolerate that. And we saw this very good example of this in Sacramento County at the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, where they got up there as a board. They were responding to New California's cease and desist orders, which, we gave cease and desist orders about this whole thing with the election and certification to all 58 counties. And the board president had to respond. And he took about 15 minutes of the first part of the meeting just to respond to our letter. And it was completely wrong and off base in his response. It was really a very negative thing. And our New Californians stood up against it and said, no, this is not right. And so person after person after person after person, not attacking him, but attacking what he was saying.
Right.
They were pigeonholed. And even at the end, when the whole thing was being at the end of the meeting, one of the board members said, basically we were right. So people are starting to take stock now. They're kind of fed up, and it kind of goes along.
And I completely agree, but we have to be, we're going to have to embrace the people that we disagree with. If these politicians are doing things illegally, both sides of the people are going to be on the juries, both people. And I completely understand the frustration. I worked at high levels of communism. So I understand government bureaucracy and how it can destroy your life. I'm a personal story of that. But it's still, even the experiences I've had with foreign governments where I've lost substantial funds and been, had projects stolen, sometimes with the assistance of American companies who are kind of on the same large company mentality government strategy. So I'm just encouraging people to just take a lighter note, try to take a breath, and we are frustrated, but we are winning. And some of the things that I wanted to focus today on is how the media has lost the trust of large amounts of the segments of our population. And the shift has caused financial and backlash from the public. And for a lot of these major movie stars and news anchors, and their shows have literally been canceled, and their sponsorship contracts have been canceled. So this is the way we take these people down, not by acting just like them, right? The tables have finally turned, and people are on the run. I mean, there's different stories, and even like some of the companies are being sold, but I believe one of the reasons they have no bidders is because they know there's a lot of pending litigation, and it's just begun because Trump just settled the first lawsuit with CNN about them calling him a rapist. Elon Musk just sued The View. So the comeuppance are coming, and these people are destroying themselves. So we need to go ahead and let them do it.
Let them, fall on their own sword.
These people have lost their credibility in society today because people say, and this is one thing I think people miss. Everyone was so shocked that some of the people on the campaign tour were getting paid by what do you think charities do? Do you think that George Clooney just took 2 weeks off to campaign for Haiti? He probably got 10% of the money he raised for Haiti, just like he got 10% of the money he raised for the Democratic Party. This is a business. This is a multi-billion-dollar business, and people are making money on both sides. And yes, maybe Tucker Carlson didn't take an interview because this would be unethical in the standards of most media. But today they're openly taking money. And as you can see, they're taking money from the federal government, and they're supposed to be the line of defense between the people and the government. So
this is a big story, and what you point out is the money part of this that no one's ever seen. I didn't even know it. I want to go back to Rachel Maddow because when this is probably 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, when she first got her new studio and all that stuff. That's the time frame. So you get the idea. She's been on MSNBC now for about 10 years. But I had just started off with a new cable company. Right now we're with Red State Talk Radio. That's what we've been doing the last 12 years, 14 years. And so it had another cable company, digital channel come up, and this is out of Pennsylvania. And so they took my show, and the Red State Talk Radio was taking my show. So I was broadcasting on 2 different platforms. And so this guy stopped me and says, I really appreciate your show. He said, I just want to run some things by you, though, so you understand what you're doing. And I said, okay, no problem. And I said, so what is going on? He said, I'll give you a comparison here. He said, your first hour shows you had over 175,000 listeners, because you can track it pretty easily on a digital platform. And I said, the next hour you had about almost 200,000, and then you're over 250. And I'm sitting there thinking, those sound like pretty good numbers, And he said, so I want you to look around your studio. He said, how much money do you think you have invested in your studio? I said, $4,000 or $5,000, maybe. I mean, I can do this thing on a cell phone, And he said, well, I want to give you an idea how impactful you are as opposed to Rachel. And I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, well, she just got a new studio, brand new studio, $30 million. And he said, in her first hour, in her only hour, she had 90,000 viewers. And he said, you had how many listeners in 3? He said, there's no competition there. You're getting your message out. She's not. And I bring this up now because I think it's important. She's still not getting her message out. She never has gotten her message out.
No, she's a paid shill. Once you understand, Rachel Maddow was one of the thousands of Hollywood, hundreds of Hollywood people who during COVID showed up with the leg cast, just like Hillary Clinton had, John McCain had. Most major stars and celebrities had a leg injury during COVID. So I think that Rachel was brought down a while ago, that they've been playing a role in some way, and that this money has dried up. They're not getting it from their advertisers because big pharma has pulled out of the media. You hardly ever see all those commercials anymore. So she was crying because I think Rusk was trolling. She was literally crying on her show because Elon Musk said he was going to buy MSNBC.
Right.
And she also took a $5 million pay cut. So I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain any of this stuff. If you look at Hollywood, there is a mass exodus of businesses from Hollywood. People in the industry, I have a few friends. One of my friends been a cameraman forever. He's driving Uber and Lyft right now. People are struggling in Hollywood, and it's because it's the everyday regular people too. And believe me, a lot of them are conservative. Not all.
I was going to say that most of them, those are the ones we talk to that call us.
Yes.
We have a lot of people from the Valley and Hollywood calling here, looking for jobs and say, "What are you going to do for the movie industry?" Or, something like that. You're going to. A lot of them want to transpose Hollywood in some part of New California that's just nothing but conservatives, which I thought was very interesting.
Well,
but it goes to your point. They are conservatives. I grew up in some parts of Hollywood when I was a kid, and my family was very conservative, and the family extensions that were in Hollywood were very conservative.
Well, I believe that, the move from California when I was growing up, it was a Republican state, but Ronald Reagan started it by giving all the amnesty to everybody in the major cities, and they voted Democratic. This is something I didn't agree with him about, and that we're still suffering from the repercussions today. So that was the big move in California. Plus, they brought all the people from the East Coast who'd collapsed the industrial base there. On the East Coast and taken the power and moved it to California. And then when they were done here, they shipped it off to China or Japan or wherever we conquered in wars, and we could use slave labor over there. So there's a lot of things going on in the whole world in general. I was just going to kind of go over a few of the major people that people might really feel like got their comeuppance. And again, I'm empathetic to anybody who's going through a job loss or a job change. These are human beings. They do have families and children that had nothing to do with what's going on. So we always need to keep that in mind when we're going. It's just like we shouldn't go after the politicians' children in that because it's not their fault. But people like The View, Sunny Hostin, her hypocrisy is so abundant. She literally has had the audacity to call out Julia Roberts.
I know.
Because she's saying we can't believe people like Julia Roberts. We need to watch The View and get the correct information from these women and not from movie stars. So they're just feeding on themselves right now. Another great one I thought was Rob Reiner. I mean, who has been more obnoxious than Rob Reiner? And I've actually met him. He used to take his children to he seems like a nice person. I used to take my friend's daughter to some events, and when I lived in Beverly Hills, and sometimes he would be there with his children. And so, I met him on a social level. He seemed to be a nice man, but basically his contract has been canceled by Warner Brothers. He reportedly checked into a mental facility after he was canceled for his Netflix show that was supposed to be a $12 million 2-part documentary about his life career in the film industry. Apparently, he wanted to make it a political agenda. He was going to direct, write, and produce it. And he's trying to make other deals with other studios, but nobody wants to touch him because his political stuff has become so divisive. And then, of course, we've got Robert De Niro, which I'm sure a lot of you people have seen him just lose his mind. I think he really thinks he's a gangster in one of the Soprano movies. He's really just an actor who seems to have a bit of a mental instability related to someone that he doesn't even know. But he had 2 of the 3 movies canceled that he was in. Of course, he was demanding much more than he negotiated, about $20 million more. And he says that he was fired because Zaslav and the head of Warner Brothers CEO disagreed with his personal views, and that he was being fired for the wrong reasons. So he's threatening to sue, and he's giving them until this month, the end of this month, to reinstate his contracts. And he's also been blackballed by Universal and Sony. So Ellen DeGeneres, I don't know if people are aware of what's been going on with her. Literally, she was a close friend with P. Diddy, and she was also heavily involved in, if you look at her set of her show, there's an island, and that's Epstein Island. That's the major prop centerpiece of her show. So Ellen's moved to England. She's still trying to make content. I don't know. It's not interesting whatsoever. But anyway, that's what's going on with her. Obama has completely destroyed his image. He is done. He has been shown to be the true hypocrite he was, and his condescending, racist comments about both black and white people, I think, finally destroyed him.
I think the brothers comment that did it for him.
Yes,
the brothers. When he had that conversation with, to quote, the brothers, and I felt that the brothers, I could see the body language from behind some of these guys. I mean, I know the brothers, and these guys are real brothers. He's not a brother.
No.
And their body language when he was talking was like, geez.
I think you and I have discussed his history. And,
yeah.
It's completely made up. And he's a Manchurian candidate, kind of like Kamala Harris. These people have completely made up histories. And I think over the next little bit, we'll be finding out more about just what big liars they are. So Joy Behar, one of the nastiest women on television, her HBO special got canceled. The comedy wasn't funny. Disney View is dropping. They've been sued repeatedly. They have to open most of their shows right now, retracting what they said about everybody from J.D. Vance to Elon Musk. So that is
not a good place to be.
Yeah. And of course, Jay Behar's blaming it on the Old Boys Club over at HBO. And she's, of course, threatening to sue them also.
Just a sort of a nice little package for Hollywood and the elites.
I'm just highlighting some of the most obnoxious people. There's so many more that are feeling the backlash. We've got George Clooney, and now he's blaming Obama for making him write the letter to Biden, that open letter. And again, George Clooney's getting money, I haven't seen a contract that says that, but if you understand how these things work, he's getting him. Where did all that Haiti money go? He probably got 10% of that. He's finally getting the backlash that some of these same exact people that have been raising money for charities and ripping us off, and the Haitians have nothing to show for it. To me, these people are finally just getting exposed, and they're exposing themselves.
I want to get into the area of child sex trafficking with these people, and because that's a big deal for them.
Yes, and this is one of the reasons that they've had to come out so strongly against. Well, this is kind of an interesting tidbit of gossip. George Clooney's wife is accusing Julia Roberts and George Clooney of having a secret affair. So that's kind of topped off the whole thing. But a lot of people don't understand that Julia Roberts actually comes from an acting family. Her birth was paid for by Martin Luther King Jr.
Really?
Her parents were his acting coaches. So these people are what I believe they're generational character actors that are repeatedly inserted into the public eye. Why does this one person get all this attention and someone else doesn't? You can see that these are generational families that have been involved in these things.
That's amazing. So,
were you aware that Julia Roberts,
no.
why would he pay for Julia Roberts' parents, the birth of the baby? It's just an unusual story. So I've never had time to dig into that, but I'd be really curious because I think
I
there's
kind of got
probably
blindsided
CIA
on that one.
connections. Yeah.
Yeah. What's what is that? What is that connected on? But the whole notion of child sex trafficking in California is now totally off the hook. And all the
Oh,
things that are
right.
going on there. And
I believe,
Hollywood
of
has played
course,
a big
all these
role.
actors and actresses are involved at some level. The reason they got a 20 movie deal is because they sold their soul. That's open, that they sold their soul. And part of that is the human trafficking and the pedophilia. And this is what they're trying to hide right now. This is why they're so insane, because these people are going to lose a lot of people. Look at how crazy they're acting now just because they lost a movie deal. These people are imploding right in front of us, and I think it's designed this way. I think a lot of these people were already arrested a long time ago. Like I said, hundreds of people in Hollywood hurt their leg during
So,
COVID. And
tell everybody. Some people may have missed this. They had an ankle bracelet on, or they broke a
okay,
leg.
right. Well,
So tell people what that's all about.
Okay, so during COVID, there was a massive Operation Warp Speed, was actually the intelligence agencies' assassination programs were actually reversed. And as you may know, people like the Rothschilds died, even the heir, over the last few years. So they were taking out the 12 bloodlines, Luciferian bloodlines that have controlled the planet for some time. Whether they were giving the power to someone else or whether they were taking the power back for us is unclear to me. But this was occurring. You can go online, go look, and this came out. Go look. John McCain and Hillary Clinton were quite cozy during that period, and they appeared publicly several different times. And the final time they were seen together, John McCain had his leg cast on the wrong leg. And of course, the time and date of his death had been announced on 4chan. This is also when they were going over for 4chan, even before he announced his brain cancer. And he died at that exact time and date 6 months after it was announced on 4chan and after he was publicly seen with those leg braces. You could go on, you could see Ellen DeGeneres was literally showing hers from her YouTube station. Oprah Winfrey had one on, Rachel Maddow had one on. So it was a really interesting time. And then everybody came out later. But again, I believe that P. Diddy's arrest was made public, but they had actually been arresting people from that group for quite some time. So there is some kind of international sting operation going on. And hopefully and prayerfully, it's the good guys taking them down. It's just not their opposing faction that's just taking them out, and will replace it with their people.
Now, a rumor, and I say it's a rumor right now because I came across from a source that I would say always has good rumors. That usually, okay, the red hand, the red came up. Anyway, but Trudeau is now being accused by some of trafficking. And when I say trafficking in children from India. Have you heard that?
Okay, well, let's get into Pierre Trudeau. His father, according to his father was a communist and is the one who turned Canada into the huge problem. He set everything in motion. Canada is collapsing. Canada is one of the worst economically set countries right now in the world, in the Western world anyway. I was going to talk about that a little further, but Pierre Trudeau's father was heavily involved. I've seen several different MK Ultra victims testify that they were repeatedly raped by him as children. His own bodyguard wrote a book about him being a pedophile and homosexual, and that he was actually working with Kamala Harris's. I think we talked about Kamala Harris's mother was at McGill University,
Right.
or McGill University, where the Nazis, the Canadians, had brought over, were doing the monarch mind control programs at McGill University, and he was one of the major sexual deviant abusers of those children. So I have no doubt
This
that not
is
only he was probably abusing his own child growing up, the mother was from another elite kind of British family who was also a subject of the MK Ultra mind control.
so this is in part because of stuff like this, right?
Excuse me?
This is you're talking about stuff like this, Operation Paperclip with the
Yes,
Nazis.
Operation
Yeah,
Paperclip is all about human trafficking and sexualization of children. These ancient cults practice this ancient, what did they call, Babylonian money magic
right, right.
and Babylonian sex magic. They practice these ancient practices and usually has to do with the killing and murdering and rape of children. They steal their vril. I don't know if you ever understood the communist Madame Blavatsky and the stuff the United Nations is based on,
Right.
all the channeled writings of these people.
Yeah.
So yes, I
Real.
believe that that they have heavily been involved in human trafficking and also assisted the human traffickers of bringing people into the United States. He's also participated in the continued genocide of the First Nations people of Canada on behalf of the Chinese, where the especially Native American women are. There's an area in northern Canada where the Chinese have taken over a lot of the mining camps and the mining industries, and they repeatedly. I think there's a book out called The Trail of Tears right now, and it talks about not only the massive murders that's going on in the First Nations people, but the fact that they're harvesting their organs and taking their children.
You're talking about the First Nations people of Canada.
Yes.
What about America?
Oh, I believe they're doing it in America too. We were just talking about Pierre Trudeau, and I
Right.
definitely know that the First Nations people are targets.
Well, there's so many, like in the CIA is so actively involved in the Native Indians in the United States, and there's certainly all over the reservations. We can go to Morongo, we can go all over the place, and the CIA has operations going on. My
And the
concern
Chinese.
oh yeah,
The
exactly.
Chinese are heavily involved in they're infiltrating the First Nations people. Of course, they'll kill them all. But basically, I've listened to a lot of I live in a First Nations area, so I frequently talk to people that live on the Wintu tribe or part of the Wind River tribe. And they are definitely on, because those are actually private nations. So this is one of my I don't understand why they're letting the Chinese are basically approaching, according to the Indian tribal leaders, they're saying basically you're Asians and these white people took your land.
Right.
So
That's
why don't you
exactly what
go
they're
with
saying. That's
why don't you
exactly
go
what they're
with the
saying.
Asians?
Right. Well, they actually claim them as Chinese, is what they tell them. Because our ancestors came across here, and you are ancestral Chinese, and so
Right.
therefore we own you. Basically, you owe us. That's the theory, and some people feel okay. That's the way it is. That's not the way it is. That's just what China is telling them, and again, this is going on all around Central America and South America as well. It doesn't
Well,
just start here.
according to DNA, the Chinese have only been in China for about 3,000 years. Right. If you look at the ancient tombs and that, like if they're ancient, they found remains of white people, blue-eyed, red-haired people in all of the mummies that they've been covering up. So the civilization they claim to have started actually may not have been started by the Chinese, although they may have continued it on. With DNA, it's disputed a lot of the things that people have told us, including with the white race, not just with the Asian race, different things that we've been told over time. So I guess if we're talking about the international stuff, I just want to focus on something good, and I believe was the fall of the media. You and I tend to always go on, and I always want to know that I do see the good in the world. I don't spend all of my life thinking about all of these kind of things. I'm just showing people, how a lot of people think there's nothing happening. There's nothing happening. And I like to show people that there's actually a lot happening. It's just not being broadcast on the media. And now we can see why all the media entities are in trouble, because their funding is going to stop. So I believe the independent media won 10 years ago. The government's just been funding it, so it doesn't seem like it. So we're really seeing the crash of that entity.
I would absolutely agree. I can remember around 2010, 2011, because our type of radio and our type of communication over the internet and everything like that has just been exploding. It has exploded. But I think that the mainstream news media died about 10, 12 years ago because of so much intervention and insertion on the internet by people like myself and other citizen journalists who have had a huge impact. That it's an impact. They're afraid of us. I mean, the government people are absolutely. We're the first ones to be excluded from anything that goes on now. They'll, as in the case with Gavin Newsom, they won't allow any of our AENN or Agenda 21 radio folks that have press credentials even close to these people. Say, no, we don't allow you in because we're going to tell the truth about them. And that all really started about 10 years ago, about 12 years ago, when they realized we're just talking the truth and we're not bought off, by mainstream media. And we're not saying the same old thing. You see this happening in Shasta County a lot, by the way, where there's a confliction going on, that you still see the vestiges of mainstream media in some of your local channels there, some of your local TV and press media.
Well, remember, I mean, you and I are both old enough to remember. I was just old enough to be listening to the news at the time. But if you remember in the 70s, it was exposed that the government was paying most of the people in the mainstream media. They were either actual CIA agents or paid CIA informants. So this isn't anything new. It's just finally happening. Of course, we have them at the local levels, especially in areas that are really more democratic. I don't want to say democratic, conservative areas. They're put in place to turn the population, and what they're put in place to do is to turn us against each other. So we don't find any way to resolve our issues on a normal level, and that we're just pitted against each other. And I've been so happy to see people like Anna Kasparian and so many different people coming to the Come to Mama conversation, and their eyes have really been opened. I feel like, especially with the younger media and younger influencers, a lot of them really had an awakening. And it's something that just happens to all of us between 20s and 30s, because we've been in college or whatever, and we're idealistic and we believe in everything. But by the time we're 30, we kind of start to really understand how the world works. And you will constantly see this shift. You hardly ever see a Republican going to a Democrat, but throughout my life, I've seen about half the people I know go from Democrat to be a Republican. So I believe both parties have sold us out. So I'm not real big on either one of them, because not that a lot of people don't go to Congress, and a lot of great people don't work on the Hill that are very patriotic. But the reality, in order to survive, you have to become one of the animals. Otherwise, they'll just take you down. I mean,
one of the things that I've noticed in the last 2 years, actually, is the treatment of New California by younger media folks. And, we've had a whole smattering of national and worldwide publicity about us in the New California State Movement the last month and a half. And then today, yesterday, The Spectator came out, which is the January edition. They really did a fantastic job. The writer was great.
But I was really. We have an article in The Spectator coming out this month?
Yeah, it's already out. Actually, you can see it on agenda21radio.news. But the point is that every one of these reporters has been really, really young. I mean, we're talking about 20s to say 35. They've been thorough. They've been objective. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what's really going on? Because, we've always had to walk around and be on tiptoes about some of these people because we've been so maligned and all that stuff. But they really gave us fair treatment. And I'm sitting here thinking that there's really hope out there for the younger generation in particular, that they are really doing a fantastic job. At least and obviously it's all positive towards us. But the questions and the way they were being asked, there was no disrespect. Tell us what the facts are, and they would come to logical conclusions. It was very, very, very interesting to see it. And now I see the positive articles coming out, so I can't complain.
Well, it's this younger generation that's seen the devastation on their families' businesses from what the media has done, from their fathers and uncles and brothers who've been sent to war in foreign countries, and we have no idea, A, where the country is, or B, why we're there. So I give a lot of people want to smash the younger generation. The younger generation is going to have to live with all the mistakes we made.
Yeah,
including some of the things we did raising our children, because people want to blame the children, but whose fault is it?
No, you don't blame the children. I learned a long time ago that, and this is in my lifetime working with young adults and watching teenagers in particular really matures, through the last 4 years of their public education, is that kids are kids and they can sort things out on their own. And they will come up and they will do the right thing almost in every case. And I think that with the extremes that they've had to go through in the last 12 to 14 years, primarily with, the education system being turned over to the federal government, and you have all this different stuff going on, genital mutilation coming from the federal government, they sorted it out. They've sorted this out, and they're not going to stand for it. And I think that we need to know that the kids are strong enough to figure these things out, and they seem to be doing it.
Well, and I think too, like, for instance, when I was in college, to step out against a teacher would mean you got an F in the class.
Right.
If you wanted to write your own, they'll say to you, what's your opinion about this? But if you didn't write the opinion that they gave you in the textbook, you got marked down. And
That's
I'd
right.
argue with them. I'm like, you asked me for my opinion. Well, your opinion doesn't reflect the textbook materials. Well, my opinion. So you were punished. And I think with the internet and with children recording the teachers, and also with the COVID shutdown, with people seeing what their children were learning in school, there's been a culmination of a lot of things. And so children have felt confident to move out, to speak out. Because before, even if the majority of the class, the media and the news and that would make it seem like these children were just being difficult or they were just in trouble. And they've also put teachers who were instigators, and that's part of their hiring process, is they want these instigator teachers. They want these teachers that are going to pick on students that don't. So they're programmed from a young age not to speak out and understand that they're going to be punished. So this is also part of communist thinking and doctrine that's being instilled through our school system.
Hopefully that's going to stop. Simone, great job today. Fantastic having you here. The setting is beautiful, by the way.
Well, thank you. And I never did get to us discussing the economic situation that's coming up in the United States. I think we could probably do that on our next show.
Yeah, we need to do that very quickly because events are moving quickly. And that needs a whole hour because of what has come up here in the last 24 hours, that we're just every hour, every day now for New California is significant. And we're seeing it in a big way. We're going to have to get you to go back to Washington for us. That's going to have to be a prereq. That's going to be something. I'm sure you don't mind doing that, do you?
Yeah, no, I don't mind. And I look forward to helping in any way I can. I hope you have a happy new year. We have a lot of obstacles ahead of us as a community, as a people. And we need to move forward because there's going to be some tough roads ahead. This next 18 months is going to be tough internationally. So we just need to stay strong and know that there's a brighter future ahead. Yeah,
that was kind of the theme last night with Chris Street. And, we're always optimistic and positive in the New California State movement. And all this negativity, we have to be. This is what the Constitution drives us to do. Simone, thank you very much.
Take that gold out of the ground.
That's right.
And get the United States currency. We need to call out our leaders who are telling us to sell gold right now and buy crypto. Every nation in the world is accumulating gold. We need to accumulate gold because they're probably lying about the gold that we've got.
They're doing that. Anyway, Simone, tell us how we can get a hold of you.
open up the gold fields of California and the minerals of the United States, and we're going to have a recovery ahead of us. If not, we're going to have a tough road.
You got 15 seconds. How can we get a hold of you?
My name's Simone. I have a show called Lost in Translation Show, one word on Rumble, or catch me at simonemanerson at AOL.com. Thank you. Happy New Year. Thanks to all your listeners. Have a great day, Paul.
Thank you, Simone. Simone Anderson with us here on Agenda 21 Radio. Remember to visit our website, agenda21radio.news. That's agenda21radio.news, and also New California State. Thanks for listening to Agenda 21 Radio. And stay strong, America. We are exceptional, America.
We're sending out an SOS to the last vestiges of freedom, democracy, and the American way of life. Paul Preston with Agenda 21.
This is AENN, American Exceptionalism News Network.